As anglers, we immerse ourselves into the ever-changing elements that are presented by these brief snapshots in time. No matter how harsh, we keep our feet in the water and trudge forward hunting for that next bite. Each of the 4 seasons presents a certain mystique, that is, if you're keen enough to recognize the surroundings as they shift. Capturing the subtle changes as they bleed into one another is no easy task, and all too often they will disappear through your hands like sand. So much happens, and sometimes the lust for fish or the excitement of the next adventure is enough to pull one's attention away from these unique sights and sounds. Of course, certain days on the water can hold more weight. These often amount to page after page, meticulously etched down in your internal angling journal with the most vivid of details. Those trips make it easy to overlook the relatively uneventful days. A handful of familiar fish or a long hike leading to nowhere just don't seem to resonate as much. However, here at FLY ALL SZN, we feel each memory made is truly valuable in its own right. Impact can still be found even if those quiet outings only amount to a few notes from season to season. Scraps and scribbles can add up over time and help us anglers put together these mysterious puzzle pieces to create a more dynamic picture of our time on the water. This is going to be the home for all those smaller adventures and little memories made throughout the year. The fish we target and the techniques we will use will surely change just like the seasons. There's a chance you'll learn something, maybe you'll be inspired to follow in our footsteps, but most of all, we really hope you stick around and enjoy the story of this particular season.
Hey.
It's snowing pretty bad.
It's crazy.
I'm not ready for winter, Sam.
Me neither.
Just in time for the snow. It is ridiculously cold.
Let's let him go.
Great fish, buddy.
Been a long day, a little frustrating, but finally got a decent fish. A little cup bow.
What did you think about seeing that grizzly bear?
I hope we don't see one while we're fishing. Followed it into like these rocks right here.
That's a great fish, dude.
Yeah, these are such cool fish, man.
They really are.
All right, there. That's why I come to Alberta, folks. That is a beautiful, bright orange cutty. Yeehaw, brother. Ah, there we go. Catching some dang fish. Yep, always gotta go back for it.
As much as we might hope and pray, summer just can't last forever. The days are getting shorter and the leaves, they were always bound to change. Success and heartache seem to be next door neighbors throughout the entirety of autumn. Some moments were a touch sketchy, but that's to be expected no matter what the season. Despite opportunities becoming fewer and further in between as winter set in, we still managed to find success. Stumbling across the finish line after a long season on the road was by no means an easy feat, but somehow we managed to make it back in one piece. Early in the morning, cotton candy cascaded over the crests of Kananaskis country. After a long, hot summer on the road, the feeling of crisp autumn air was a new sensation that my tingling fingers welcomed with open arms. As the rising sun revealed the grandeur of the landscape, I felt so lucky to be sharing the trail and experiencing these sights and sounds with my good friends Christian and Rachel. Rachel and I grew up together in St. Louis, and her husband Christian has joined me on more than a few fishy adventures, and I'd go as far as say we're pretty good fishing buddies by now. They had made the trip up to Canmore and then to Calgary, so we made sure to clear some space in the old schedule to link up for a hike and potentially do some fishing.
We're going all the way up there.
Mm-hmm.
You see the trail. Going up the ridge.
Even though our aim was set high towards the sky, I did my best to recognize all the smaller details of this changing valley. Once we broke away from the creek, You could see the blushing beauty in all directions from the onset of fall. All around us, the colors of colder times were revealing themselves, and with each turn in the trail, it got more apparent. We didn't see many critters on this initial hike in, but the ones we did spot seemed to be hunkering down in preparation for unpredictable weather. This should have been our first warning sign of what we were going to be facing later in the day.
Exactly like one we did. Delicious.
Fueled up and ready for the fun to really begin, the angle of our ascent rapidly shifted. Snowpack and scree slides replaced the lush forest from further below. At this point in the hike, we all realized that getting to the trailhead at dark was truly a blessing in disguise. Because with how miserable the trail conditions already were, I can imagine being close to other hikers would make the trail conditions even more hazardous. Granted, we did see a few small dots further up the mountain, but luckily for us, the majority of our hike up was only occupied by the bright yellow larches. Funny enough, this was my first time ever getting to witness the larch phenomenon, and after witnessing the hillsides on fire, I can certainly understand the fanfare that these conifers receive. Minding the sweat and maintaining a solid pace, we broke into the cloud layer. Rain gear was activated as we moved closer to the inclement weather hovering around Smutwood Peak.
There's our lake.
Let's go fishing.
Who wants to go fishing?
Poking through the haze was the Plan B pond we had marked on the map just in case we felt like fishing. Summiting to Smutwood Peak would be a fool's errand in this weather, and not because of the temperature, but more so for the almost completely obscured view. So we marched forward towards the blue to roll the dice before the weather would require us to run. Rumors and old stocking reports told of a few lonely fish swimming around this little lake. Hard to tell if it had been done by helicopter or from the backs of poor mules, but somehow they managed to plant some strain of West Slope cutthroat in these otherwise lifeless bodies of water.
Damn, that was a fish. Dang it, dang it, dang it. Had a dang fish.
With the wind whipping and a light spray coming down, we needed to regroup and most of all, warm up.
So you're just letting it sink for like 2 or 3 seconds, or what's your...
I've got a sink tip on mine,
Okay.
but the one that hit pretty shallow, so it might be unnecessary.
Fishing is a little annoying. I feel like I need to catch one.
I know.
I think I just need to warm up my hands a little bit, eat a little food.
Mm-hmm. Maybe drink a brewski?
Yeah, that's the thing. We're not lucky. We need to get lucky.
We need to get lucky. All right, let's give this a couple more minutes. I think Rachel's miserable, so let's just make this quick. Probably go over there, cast out.
Going in for round 2, I wasn't very hopeful, and admittedly, my mind was still stuck on the bear prints Christian had found in the mud from earlier. So the aimless casting and stripping was simply autonomic at this point, and I'm shocked I was actually able to hook up with the first and only fish of the day.
Yes. There we go, not bad. I want to get you in the right direction. Oh. There it goes. Whew, jeez Louise. Oh, the clouds have just moved in. This is nuts. Ooh, it's freaking cold. Yep, it is time to go. This is getting miserable.
Now, could we have stuck it out a little longer? Yeah, I suppose. But quite frankly, the goal of this outing was to enjoy a hike and not stand miserably in the rain waiting for a bite. We were all frozen to the core and there was no point in pushing the suffering. I gave Smutwood Lake one last gander before we turned our attention to the now very crowded trail. It may not show, but I was dumbfounded with how many people decided to start a hike of this manner so late in the day. It would honestly be a miracle if half of them made it back to the trailhead before dark. And now that everything was downhill from here, we had ourselves a new issue. Between the steady drizzle and increased traffic, the semi-solid path up had turned into cold and squishy briny batter before our very eyes.
Yeah, these lushes are pretty. Good gosh. Good golly gosh. Oh, Rach, easy.
All three of us were slip-sliding down this trail, doing our best to mind the never-ending oncoming traffic. Opting to take the less traveled scree path down, we tried to avoid as many of these awkward passes as possible. A lot of these folks seem to not know, but when I was a kiddo, I was always taught to yield to the faster traffic. That means faster hikers approaching you from uphill as well as from behind you. A lot of people in tennis shoes seem to miss the assignment on that one and create unnecessary traffic jams as a result. Regardless, we finally exited the clouds in one piece and smooth sailed back through the familiar creek corridor. Like a cruel gift from the mountain gods, as soon as we hit the parking lot, the clouds parted ways and the sun beamed down strong. It was only fitting at this point to partake in a much deserved parking lot beer.
I mean, we could, there's ones in there that are maybe probably colder too.
This actually feels pretty cold.
Is it?
Must have been how I felt.
Yeah, it's still holding all that.
They were chilly up in. Wow.
Yours was shaking up. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Oh, that tastes like a good shitty beer.
Yes.
MoMAS 2023 was a huge success for Mike and I, and we really wanted to end the trip on a high note. We'd hoped to check off 2 new fish species, the Athabasca rainbow and the Arctic grayling. Working mostly off of hunches and assumptions, it was a mixed bag. We found our Athabasca rainbows, including this one especially impressive individual.
That I don't know. I feel like that's
awesome.
That's got to be a stellar specimen, right?
That has to be. We were able to find a couple more little guys, but couldn't locate the grayling. So on our last morning of fishing, we switched rivers and made a more dedicated attempt. But this was all just empty casting and standing around in the cold.
I'd take a whitefish, come on.
Yeah,
Anything.
Things had also gotten a little smoky. It was time to regroup and make a change. Mike had things to do and places to be, but I didn't, and I couldn't get grayling off my mind. I'm not one to let things go easily. Some quick research led me even further north, 5 hours from Calgary and into logging country. River access here can be tricky, so I chose this bridge, set up camp, and made friends with this curious mink. Encouraged by some rising fish, but too tired to do anything about it, I settled down for the night and was hopeful for the morning. Luckily for me, late starts are almost required on these cold fall mornings. So while I enjoyed my car's heated seats, hopefully the fish were waking up. I learned from my research that grayling like to pod up in slow, deep holes this time of year, so it was just a matter of covering water and finding them. My first Arctic grayling, and I was immediately obsessed. The pink hues, jet black spots, and the iconic dorsal fin. It's a really cool fish. And for my first one, not bad at all. And I wouldn't have long to wait because the schooling behavior proved correct and he was not alone down there. I missed a few hook sets, but with my first 3 grayling on the board, I finished out the run, and then this bag of pretzels, and went looking for the next school. The slightly tannin-stained water masked exactly how deep these pools were and what I was really working with down there, but I was still surprised to come up empty time after time for several miles upriver. Since upstream wasn't as fruitful as I'd hoped, and I didn't have the luxury of long summer days anymore, I had to make a move. I had just enough time to backtrack downstream, about a half-mile past my camp, and after seeing the risers the night before, I was hopeful I could find an evening bite. This was very different from upriver. There were countless fish rising, not to mention the massive mayfly hatch. It was like I'd walked into some fly fisherman's lucid dream. Now, not to exaggerate, every single cast was met with an aggressive dry fly eat. I could aim at the rising fish, or I could cast indiscriminately into the current. It really didn't seem to matter. Most of the grayling were small. There certainly weren't any trophies here, but it felt like there was a never-ending supply of these fish, and I had a blast catching them with almost no effort. Some streamside activity brought me out of this fishy trance and made for a good break in the action. I was wondering if this second mink knew the one I befriended the night before when his larger rodent neighbor came out of the woodwork. I couldn't stay distracted too long, though, because this hatch was really getting out of control and the grayling were totally locked in. There were no shortage of takes, but the big stimulator I was using may have been a little big for this small-mouthed species. It was honestly probably laziness that had kept it on this long in an intense mayfly hatch, but I decided it was time to change. So I went with this more imitative mayfly, and man, did things really heat up from there. Now, I did say most of the fish were small, but there was definitely a group in there that were a size class above the rest. These bigger fish would absolutely hammer the dry fly and were amazing aerial acrobats trying to shake it. Full transparency here, this is a fraction of the total grayling I caught. There's no way I could possibly include all of them, and at a certain point I stopped filming them. I just wanted to enjoy the moment. This could have been the river telling me I should take another break, but both the beaver and the mink came back at the exact same time. I tend to anthropomorphize animals sometimes, but I wonder if they were buddies, hanging out, or maybe they were just saying goodnight to me. But no more distractions. The grayling were certainly focused, and I was running out of daylight. I just wanted to catch a couple more before heading back to camp. And man, this brief golden hour might have been the highlight of my entire fall. Satisfied way beyond my expectations and not wanting to walk back alone in the dark in grizzly country, it was time for this to come to a close, but man, what a memorable day.
After a long week of work, it was safe to say my eyes were feeling the strain from the seasonal influx of work. Plus, the city was starting to make me feel a bit boxed in, so it was high time to stretch the legs and get out of town. This was set to be the last Friday of the year with a favorable forecast, and later on the following week, temperatures would tip the scale and land closer to winter conditions. My compass was set south towards the outskirts of Cowtown for an early start to the weekend. Paralleling this world-renowned river, I tried to recall the last time I willingly fished a tailwater like this. Pressure from anglers and semi-specific hatches usually are enough to run me off of these sort of watersheds. The only redeeming factor in my mind was the fact that the Bow River and others like it held an astronomical fish per mile number. And just from this hike in, I was already able to witness both the quantity and quality of the fish. Armed with my lightly used trout spay rod, I was lacking the confidence of how I was going to actually piece a bite together. With limited practice on the spay and no real experience on this watershed, overall expectations for this evening were set fairly low from the jump.
Okay. This might be a run I can call my own.
Like a very low-level video game character, I only had one reliable move that I could spam. Even then, if I look at it critically, my continued attempt at a snap tee was sloppy at best. I went through the motions of cast, swing, strip, and step in a pitiful effort to get into a consistent rhythm. Much like meditation, the first minute or so can feel a little awkward as you clear the mind and focus on the breath. But with each cast, I settle into the flow and let my mind go blank.
Can't have that. Tick, tick, tick the moss.
Getting more comfortable with the physics of this new fly fishing technique, I found myself paying much closer attention to the practice of casting rather than the actual objective. Feeling the satisfactory tug of a good swing was the goal, and hitting it only made me want to replicate results that much more. A surprising tug almost made me drop this awkward rod before I had the wherewithal to remember that my goal was to catch fish, and that I needed to set the dang hook.
Come on, come on, come on, come on. Stay pinned, baby. Oh, this rod's way too big. Yes, dude. Yes, 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 yes. Let's go. Holy Toledo. You're a little silver bullet, baby. That is so official. First Bow River bow. Doesn't really get better than that. Right, we'll let this guy go. Thank you, sir. See ya. Yes, that's so sick. Now I've got myself a little mess here. I need to figure it out.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't completely lost in the excitement of my first Bow River rainbow on this basically brand new trout spay. My overall perception of the world around me was embarrassingly low. All senses completely missed the pair of anglers silently sliding through from further upstream.
How's the day been?
Kind of just got started. Caught my first one like 2 seconds ago.
Nice, man.
So it's my first one on my trout space, so I'm feeling pretty proud.
Get it on camera too?
Yeah. Oh no, it was doing a time lapse of the sun, so
Oh, cool.
yeah. Well, I guess the sun's set, no longer there.
You guys having luck as you're floating away? Yeah, it's been a fun day, man. Good. Good to hear. Get some on the back swimmer.
I'll have to find some in my box. Thank you.
With positive reinforcement leading my angling hypotheses, I could really start to feel the difference between a good and bad swing solely based on the friction of the current. By and by, I was beginning to get more consistent tugs that were decisively different from weeds or the river bottom. By some strange miracle, I was able to strip set and score another successful hookup.
Absolutely no way. Oh shit. Oh shit. This is such a mess. No way he's still on. This is not a bad fish. Oh no. I'm a little frustrated. I've lost 2 fish. I'm still trying to figure this thing out, but it only matters that we landed that one because that means I can finally take the plastic off this dang trout spay. I've been working on this for a while and this feels really good.
It is really hard to try and explain this feeling to most non-fishing folk, but finally getting to take that plastic off of that new rod made for such a deep sense of accomplishment. But as the day was coming to an end, the once productive run inevitably slowed down. In hindsight, it might have been a better idea to re-swing the run rather than running for seemingly greener pastures. Without much time left in the day and temperatures dropping fast, I only had time for one more honest attempt.
I'm already pushing my luck pretty far here. Looks like rain might be on the horizon, so I'm gonna give myself 10 minutes, and then we're gonna go.
A few more small ticks on the end of my line gave me that desired rush, but most likely, I was just scraping bottom. The sun was setting fast, but the evening bite was slow and really nothing connected. Gathering up my winnings from the night, I decided it was high time to hightail it out of here while I could still see. Amazed with how well things had gone, I knew I needed to make my way back before the weather turned for the worse. If one is good, well, by golly, 2 has to be even better, right? Be it whiskey, women, or waiting, if I like it, chances are my puny reptile brain will dive in for a second shot as fast as possible. Surely this is a bright red flag signaling towards having an addictive personality, but as long as those double takes tend to lean heavily towards working out and fishing, I see no real issue with this. But coming back the next morning is literally case in point. The chill was noticeably sharp, but thanks to the pace of my hurried hike upstream, I could maybe get away with wet waiting one last time. I had a rare Saturday morning with with nothing better to do, so I decided to retrace my steps from the night before and give this trout spay thing another swing.
All right. Estamos aquí.
The kiss of the sun was strong and helped relieve my nose from its tingling burn. All alone a few miles upriver from yesterday, I was feeling satisfied about this decision. Gathering up all the hints and clues from yesterday's outing, I settled back into the calming motions and continued to tinker with this puzzle. Quote-unquote feeling good is a big part of fly fishing, and I'm finding even more so when it comes to trout spay. I really get what folks mean when they say a cast just feels good. Working my way down the run, I put a rather silly mantra on a repeat. After every smooth swing following a successful snap tee, "Can you feel it, Mr. Krabs?" was echoing in my mind as the strength of the rushing current gave a firm tug to the heavy line. Unanswered casts didn't really affect the overall mood of the morning. If anything, the silence was expected. But I will say, slipping and dunking an entire arm did put a slight damper on my trout spay zen. Feeling a distant gaze searing into my back, it was clear the local fauna were amused by my buffoonery, and deservedly so. What a rookie mistake. Waiting this time of year should be handled with a bit more reverence. Wet clothes are by no means fun, but the further you fall, the further into fall, a one simple slip can get downright dangerous if you aren't prepared. Luckily for me, only one sleeve was sacrificed, which could be warmed up with more walking as the day grew longer. Adequately humbled by the fish gods and beginning to regret my brash decision to run this back so soon, a foreign tug finally answered my hours of early morning cold calls.
That's a fish. I mean, beggars cannot be choosers in this situation. All right, there we go. First on the spay. See ya, buddy. That's fine. I have no problem with that.
Without a doubt, that little rainbow was better than nothing. I knew there were much bigger fish in this river, but again, each small win while exploring this new endeavor was tangible progress. That would be the last positive reinforcement for the day, however. The rest of the morning was annoyingly spent battling free-floating weeds in the water.
Now that could have been grass, I don't know. I think a take is usually a bit more convincing than that. Let's find out. The answer is grass. Ay caramba.
Kaizen is a Japanese business philosophy of continuous improvement, and that could be with working practices or with personal efficiency, so on and so forth. Now, I studied supply chain management back at the University of Kansas. Post-grad life, I don't use my degree for my day job, and it could be argued that I remember next to nothing from the doldrum lectures that filled 4 years of my life. However, I do remember Kaizen, and I really think about it daily. When it comes to me and talent, we just aren't friends. Anything that I do requires dedication and simple hard work. Every day, incremental improvements move my metaphorical wagon across the prairie of life, one slow spoke turn at a time. I've already accepted the fact that my trout spay game is going to be clunky and unnatural for a very long time. You could say right now I'm clambering through Rock Tunnel without a proper Pokemon that knows HM Flash, and for the record, I did manage to do that one time. But I find that anything worth doing won't be easy to start. Being good at something is nice, but truly sucking at something is way more satisfying in the long run. Just like that, a few small rainbows anywhere else in the world were magically transfigured into unforgettable trophies when the day was done. With this new love gripping at my heart, the Japanese concept of Kaizen gives reason for my rhyme when pursuing continuous improvement on the water.
On a confidence high after my successful grayling trip and not ready to let my adventures in Alberta come to a close, I headed ever further north in search of new challenges.
I'm going very out of my comfort zone, going for some pike. I think they're in this river. I got no idea. Look at this freaking fly. It's crazy. I don't know. We'll see. It's a beautiful day anyway.
Spoiler alert, no pike, but I was being followed by some other fishermen. As soon as I noticed these otters, I went back for my camera to get a better shot, but they didn't like that and disappeared downriver. And unfortunately for me, that's the only sign of life I would see for the rest of the day.
This looks good anyway. Who knows what's going on?
Admittedly, this river put me way out of my comfort zone. It was just too big for me to figure out in one morning session. And when you add to that the fact that I'd never fished for pike on the fly before, I think I set myself up for failure from the beginning. But I could still pivot, and I had one last northern push in me before I was due back south, so I figured I'd really go for it. I was headed as far north as I'd ever been, 7 hours from Calgary on a small tributary of the Smoky River. The information on this area is very minimal, but I had figured out that this river was home to some bull trout. It was late afternoon at this point. I only had a couple hours, so I figured I'd scout out the river for the next day. There was some great water in this canyon, but in terms of fish, not so much. I decided it was time to cut my losses and put myself in a good position for the next day. I had been fishing pretty close to where this tributary enters the main river. The plan was to head much higher into a more isolated part of the system and see if the bull trout were up there. Again, I knew almost nothing about this river. This was mostly just a hunch. But at the very least, I was exploring new places, and dang, was it pretty this time of year. So back to the dirt roads I went, and it was over an hour before I found the river again and a good place to spend the night. It was a frigid morning in this valley, and I was in no rush to get out there. I wasn't sure how this was gonna go, but it was clear that this was a beautiful day to walk along a river. There's not much more exciting to me than getting to a new river with some really fishy looking water. And not much more deflating than finding empty pool after empty pool. And remembering empty pool after empty pool the prior evening, I was wondering if this was a good use of my time.
Good water. I don't know.
In what seems to be a pattern in my fishing life, I was very close to calling it a day right here, but sometimes my one more pool mentality pays off. I'd absentmindedly switched to a nymph rig and was pretty shocked to see the indicator go down. Certainly nothing special, but this little bowl was a sight for sore eyes and really salvaged the morning. Unfortunately, if anything, that fish just gave me the false confidence to keep pushing upriver. I covered a lot of water. A lot of water. So many casts into so many nice pools, but no evidence of any other fish. I couldn't really justify this anymore, and it was time to call it a day, but at least the walk back to my car was full of beautiful vistas. Finally, my northern push was over. It was time to head back south, a bit. I passed through Grand Cache and headed toward Hinton and beyond. There was one last thing to do in Canada, a meetup with Mike in Banff National Park. On the drive down, I saw the first snowstorms in the distant mountains. It felt like things were about to get pretty grim up here.
Hey,
It's snowing pretty bad.
this is crazy.
We got all the boys here.
It's starting to pile up a little bit.
Yeah, it is. Jeez Louise. I'm not ready for winter, Sam.
Me neither.
The powder blanket was fresh, but we were far from it. Too many beers and not enough sleep made for a very slow morning.
I'm just thinking about how slick these are and how slippery this is going to be all day.
Yeah, you're in for it today, dude.
I feel like I'm give this a quick.
That's butter.
Making his final march south for the season, Sam and I met up in the middle for one more adventure together. Clambering along the slippery bank, we were both keeping our eyes peeled for an unfamiliar adversary. We were after lake trout. Being a foreign species for the both of us, all we knew was to fan cast as far and as deep as we possibly could. Spreading out along this steep drop, it surprisingly didn't take all that long to get hooked up with the first specimen of the day.
It looks like a pretty good one. Yes!
Looking up at me with a crooked smile, it would seem as though these fish do see some sort of pressure from other anglers in the area.
Got a little lockjaw action going on, but I'll take that, and we'll see him back if you want to see
My
him.
very first Mackinac on the fly disappeared into the crystal blue, and we were all hungry for more. Pushing further down the rocky slope, Sam didn't have to wait very long for the next laker to show itself. I was just getting settled into my new outcropping when I heard a whoop coming from his direction.
Dude, that was awesome.
That was so cool. I we just get him right away.
Great fish, dude. Great fish. Great fish. Yes, Sam. Yes, dude. Great fish.
Well, all it took was me moving, and that was the first cast I made.
Pretty shot. Dude, Lakers are cool as hell.
These are super cool, man. Big lake trout. Dude,
Dude, that background is so cool. Hold him there.
This new char species was nothing short of captivating. Set and setting could be partly to blame for this infatuation, and there was no doubt about it, this was by far one of the biggest fish brought to the net all day long. It slid back and the skunk was officially off for the both of us. Spotting cruising fish seemed to be crucial for finding success, so we always kept our eyes on the infinite blue. We saw a few shadows throughout the day with the profile of literal submarines that would have easily pushed close to 40 inches or more. The quantity and quality of Lakers lurking within range of a fly rod was such a unique opportunity that I have never really been able to witness. But it would seem like with each one caught, that particular portion of lakefront would go dormant and a shuffle down the bank was required to seek out more uneducated fish.
Fish on, fish on.
It looks like a pretty good one.
Now you want a hand with the net?
I think I can get the net, but with the camera wouldn't be bad. Damn, he's giving me a working. Yes! Good golly, Miss Molly. It's on your white leech.
What?
It's on your white leech you gave me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dude, I love that. That's so great. Flies.
I sight fished him.
For us.
I sight fished him off the bottom. I bounced it along the bottom.
Really?
Literally bouncing it.
Sweet. Terrible
Cash.
fly. Works.
Cash. No, not today, baby. It's money.
It is money for stockies in Connecticut, though, I gotta say.
Well, Stockies in Connecticut, Lakers in Alberta, same.
Yeah, the water looks pretty much the same.
It's about the same. Because what I've been doing is I've been bringing them in, but I can't get them to commit. So I've been downsizing. And then that was the first one, or first or second one, that I could actually get close.
Yeah.
And then bouncing it off the bottom seemed to be. I mean, that could be a fluke.
Once again, the snow started to move in from the mountains above. While that was making the fish harder to spot, the fourth wall might need to be broken for just a minute, because by now, anyone viewing may be able to tell some elements of the story seem a touch off. Clearly, the filming is choppy, and a lot of the audio has been cut. Most of all, it's probably clear that Sam and I were not alone on this adventure. For posterity's sake, the others in attendance will not be mentioned. This video is not the time or the place to air out dirty laundry, so I will simply leave it there. As Sam absolutely puts the hammer down on more of these fish, I hope you can maybe see the double-edged sword of fishing and filming various adventures. The overwhelming majority of these memories for us are very bright spots. We have the unique opportunity to bottle these amazing times in our lives and maybe relive them on a rainy day. But every now and then, these can age like milk and make your forehead hot with the smell of sour sentiments and wasted time. Casting a wide net will no doubt lead to some unsavory bycatch, and that's just a fact of this game that you'll have to be able to live with. Seeing as sight fishing for glacial char in a crystal blue lake was a rather unique experience, Sam and I both agreed that pasteurizing this memory would be far better than simply throwing it away. Cutting out the mold and trying to preserve the good parts would hopefully be worth it in the end, because something like what happened next is well worth remembering.
There we go, another one. Oh, this is a cool one. Yo, this one has that spot, that line.
Oh, dude.
I think he's all wrapped up. Yeah, he's all sideways.
Oh, yeah, look at the colors on that one.
I should have been that out. Yeah, dude. Let's freaking go. That's a great fish. You on two? Laker double, I've got the net. Sam, can you keep him on? Keep him on. I wish mine wasn't all wrapped up, but this is gonna be the mess we're living in.
He followed it into like these rocks right here.
That's a great fish, dude.
Oh, yours is awesome.
Dude, this is sweet.
Oh, dude, and two followed it in, and the other one was like double this size. But.
Oh, yes!
Basket of
Lake trout double? Are you kidding me? Even months later, that still gets me so jacked up. What an incredible fish, and what an unforgettable background to see it all in. Those Macs would end up being the last fish that Sam and I would be seeing together for a long time. While I had the hubris to think I could combat an encroaching winter, life obligations, and end-of-year fishing trips pulled Sam back south towards the States.
After parting ways with Mike, I didn't hesitate on the drive south, and before I knew it, I was in Wyoming. I've spent some time fishing Yellowstone in the past. It's always been so crowded. Given that it's early October, I figured might be able to avoid some of that. Not quite. I'd hoped to fish the fall run of brown trout coming up the Madison River. Apparently, so did everyone else, but I found a quiet section of a backup river unoccupied. Highly pressured water, late in the season, I wasn't sure what to expect. I'd heard a streamer might be the ticket, but so far, no dice. The glare was really tough, and the water was pretty uniform. It felt like this was going to be tricky. The fishing was pretty frustrating, but then I was reminded to stop and look around a little bit. This was Yellowstone, after all. I didn't dare pass this bull bison while he was so close to the river, but this forced break ended up turning things around a little bit for the day.
I think that might have been a fish.
A suspiciously fishy tap on my indicator had me on high alert.
Man.
0 for 2 in just a couple minutes. Definitely a frustrating way to start, but I'd found something here. This was a stellar fall brown trout, exactly what I'd come up here for. Now that I got the skunk off with that first fish, I could really take a breath and appreciate my surroundings in this beautiful meadow valley. Back on the river, this next trout would snap me right out of that moment of zen.
I'm off my game. Can't land anything. It's all good. We're all good.
Despite my brave face for the camera, I can't lie, that one hurt. Watching a brown in the upper teens get off right at the net, oh boy. And I didn't know it yet, but I wouldn't see a fish even close to that caliber for the rest of the day. I got back to it, but the wind was getting a little unreasonable as morning turned to afternoon. I already thought this was a difficult river, but the wind made everything much more challenging, and I needed to push into a more sheltered section. I did manage to find a couple browns, but it was clearly time to move on. A few miles upriver, there's a major canyon with an impassable waterfall. But above that, there's another meadow section that I had heard was pretty fishable. It was well into the afternoon by this time, so I backtracked to my car and got moving upstream. Driving up to my last-ditch spot of the day, I saw a classic Yellowstone traffic jam and a blur of motion in the trees across the river. I spent a half hour watching this grazing grizzly family before they disappeared back into the forest. I wondered what possibly could have turned them back. Anyway, back to reality, and it was time to give these upper meadows a try. I was much closer to the road than I'd prefer. Something about listening to cars whizzing by in a national park just doesn't feel right. But there was some very appealing water. Expecting another little brown, this native cutthroat was an awesome surprise. I was real happy with that fish, but for the remainder of the day, I just couldn't quite figure things out. There were a few rising fish, but the needed dry fly pattern eluded me. And something about these looming clouds just rubbed me the wrong way. Yep, time to go. Yellowstone had left a bittersweet taste in my mouth, and I wasn't quite done with Wyoming yet, even if the weather was telling me it might be time to move on. I found myself on a familiar river at an unfamiliar time of year. The weather was pretty grim, but these are great streamer conditions, and I was determined to make a day of it. This is a highly pressured river, and weirdly enough, days like this might be my best chance to catch a good fish. But as much as I tried to talk myself into these being favorable conditions, this was pretty brutal from the jump. I spent a couple hours casting into the wind, snow, and sleet, but nothing. I've fished this section in the summer before and had great luck with a hopper dropper, but it's flat and relatively featureless, not the best streamer water. So I hopped in my car and drove a few miles down the valley. The river down here is very different and I like the looks of it a lot more. There's so much more structure, plenty of runs, pools, boulders, troughs, seams, places for a predatory brown to ambush a streamer, maybe. Plus, I found this surprise hot spring. I worked my way downriver from here, thinking maybe the fish congregate here in the cold months. The first pool suggested that my hunch might be right. From this quick glimpse, it was clear that was a big brown. One jump and he was off within 5 seconds. On a day where I knew I wasn't going to get too many bites, this was a bummer. I'd be thinking about that one for a while, but I'd found the right water, so I couldn't quit now.
That's a pretty good fish. Take. Damn it.
By now the snow had turned to sleet, but the wind had stayed the same, and I was starting to question the merits of wet wading in October. It's funny what hooking just one fish does to me. It gives me this crazy confidence, and I can just keep going and going. But even I have my limits, and I was getting close to them. The further away I got from my car, the less I wanted to keep going, and the more I thought about a burger and a beer in Pinedale. If I remember correctly, I was extremely close to calling it a day right here, but the river would have other plans for me. This was a really strong fish, and right away I knew I'd have to follow him downriver. So you'll have to trust me on the net job, but somewhere down there I landed my first fish of the day.
Been a long day, a little frustrating, but finally got a decent fish, a little cutbow. It was good. Nice fish, really pretty.
If hooking a fish gives me irrational confidence, catching a fish, that's a whole different level. A good number of pools and 100 casts later, I realized that was false confidence. At this point, I was running out of daylight, absolutely freezing, completely soaked, and mostly just thinking about a hot shower. I was at my last pool, and I know a day of streamer fishing is over when I tie on a nymph rig. But when I saw that indicator go down and brown flash through the water, I got pretty hopeful. Okay, not quite what I wanted, but if you don't appreciate a good sucker, you need to get over yourself. A couple casts later, down goes the indicator again, and I figure more of the same. But when I got my eyes on the fish, it was pretty clear, small stalked rainbow. Again, not really the target, but can't be choosy on a day like today, and I was happy to see him. And maybe for my dedication today, the river rewarded me with one more. Now I was truly done. I couldn't feel my toes, but I could feel my stomach rumbling and had to get out of there. This pronghorn stare down was a fitting way to end my time in Wyoming for now. Winter was clearly almost here, and like a bird heads south, I head east.
This is for the record. Meat hang was never supposed to go like this. Now here we are.
Life threw a couple very sour lemons in our direction, and it was time to salvage what was left of meat hang. Breaking out of the bustling buzz of morning rush hour in Calgary, the pins and needles of desperation crept up my neck. Snow and ice had covered the countryside, and our options were extremely limited. Knowing things were sure to be difficult, Kowalski and I both agreed one dedicated day of scouting might serve us best in the long run. But before we hit those icy forest roads, our stomachs told us to grab some lunch.
Those will wake your nostrils up.
Came through with the snack pack. Damn, buddy. Pretty much all we can need, huh?
We're set now.
Lunch.
Let's go find some fish.
So we set off into the maze of unpaved roads in search of open water. The shift from autumn to winter in just a matter of weeks was so swift. Option 1 was only days away from succumbing to a full rear naked choke from old Father Winter.
That one's pretty froze up.
It's so weird, it's just chugging out. All right, Kowalski, what's the verdict?
This one's okay. We're gonna go check out 2 more spots, so we're ready for tomorrow.
With the fishing season across the province set to close next week, Kowalski and I would be pushing the envelope when it comes to exploring the central Alberta waters. The bright side to this is that there was almost a guarantee the roads would be mostly empty for the next few days. Or, so we thought.
Oh, I just went through there. Keep going back. I can't see him anymore. Buddy, that was kind of spooky. That was a grizzly bear.
That was a big boy.
That was a big grizzly bear.
It moved so dang fast, I couldn't even get the camera on this behemoth. But I suppose the signs are up for a reason, folks. Even this late in the season, grizzly bears can still be out and about looking for that last winter meal.
What did you think about seeing that grizzly bear?
It's pretty cool, but like also
Kinda scary.
I hope we don't see one while we're fishing.
I know.
Spot number 2 didn't offer much in the way of fishing potential, but it made up for the effort with a stunning view of a frozen waterfall.
Just some scouting.
The water at spot number 3 looked far too good to leave the rod in the truck. With daylight dwindling, this would be our last opportunity to stretch the legs and scout for potential. No net, no waders, and just one rod. Clearly, we were woefully unprepared, so receiving a real tug at the end of the line came as somewhat of a surprise to the both of us.
I mean, that shows they're still eating here, man.
It looks like Thorfinn.
He's messed up, man. A little bit beat up there, buddy.
What did he do?
Try to make this easy on you. All right, you're free as a bird, brother.
Bye, friend.
Oh, what? Fish? What? Holy Toledo!
They exist.
This already very broken clock of an adventure was miraculously right twice in one day, because not soon after that first fish, we found yet another chili cutthroat.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what these fish do. Because right now they can't be picky, they gotta eat, you know? It's too cold. There's not enough food, you know, coming from the rest of the area, so whatever comes by their face, they kind of gotta munch. Yeah, but I know there's bigger fish here. It's nice just to get a little bit of a taster.
It's just nice to put something on the board.
Wait, you mean we didn't get skunked on meat hang?
The snow swirls returned and really began to come down heavy, so we couldn't contemplate this option any longer. Roads were slick and going home was rather slow. The small town of Nordegg was our lighthouse in the night, guiding us to a safe harbor. Our first official day of meat hang was coming to a close.
Well, this kind of looks like home. Whoa, dude, this place is crazy cool.
Welcome to FAS Cribs.
Come on in.
This deceptively massive house is split into two different units, and for this trip, we would be staying in the top portion. The kitchen and dining room were fully stocked with every plate, pan, and utensil you could ever need. And just outside the window, the living room had a great view of Nordegg and the surrounding area. Truly the perfect spot to wake up to and grab a cup of coffee before hitting the water.
Wait, but we're not done.
We're not done?
Let's go take a look at the bedrooms.
Okay.
And since there were only two of us, we would have plenty of room to spread out, but with this many beds, you could sleep quite a few folks in just this top floor unit. And speaking of, the basement unit is almost a mirrored image of where we were staying. The full kitchen and spacious living room were complemented by a porch rather than a deck, but with plenty of places to sleep. Whenever your adventure is done, both of these units would be a great option to look into.
Okie doke, that is the whole house. If you guys want to come to Nordegg, do some fishing because there's a lot of fishing around. You guys should definitely check the link in the description below. Dave and Laura are amazing hosts, and they hooked us up with an absolutely beautiful pad to spend the rest of our trip with. So, yep, go check them out. Thank you guys very much, and yeah, let's keep this trip rolling.
Energy levels were pretty zapped after dealing with the cold all day. We had just enough left in the tank to unload the truck and settle into the Airbnb before the sun fully set. That warm glow emanating from the fireplace might have been one of my favorite parts of this space. And after a few cups of hot tea, it was impossible to fight off sleep any longer. Plus, with a big day on the horizon, we needed all the sleep we could get.
Well, I think it's safe to say this is going to be the coldest meat hang ever.
Artificial selection, instant gratification, mothership, and one other one.
So we have them all downloaded because I've got...
I have everything except for Afterburn, basically. Every till album except for Afterburn.
It's a little cold. Just a little bit.
Let's get it, boys.
Leaving the security of our cozy corner of Nordegg, we took back to the road. Kowalski and I were shocked with how well these roads were maintained, but that just goes to show that industry doesn't stop just because the snow comes along. Making it back to the only river that held fish, we layered up and stuffed our bags full of hot hands and meal bars. A long walk in the snow was in our future, but for the time being, the uniform blanket of white was enough to distract from the subpar hiking conditions.
Keep your eye out for any cracks.
Haven't seen anything worth outside of like rabbit tracks so far.
Okay, so we just stopped our hike. We're having to be cognizant of layers because as cold as it is outside, you know, we're really bundled up, but we've been moving, we've been walking, talking, all that, and I can already feel my base layers talking, so I'm starting to sweat a little bit, and that's bad. So we're just gonna stop, take a break for a second, let the heart rate come down, and then we'll keep hiking once we cool off a little bit.
We really tried our darndest to cool off, but with this arduous trudge, coupled with the rising sun, we were forced to stop again not soon after. Sweat was drenching my base layers, and at this point, I just didn't have a choice. I had to strip down. Between the varying depths of snow and constantly stopping to adjust for temperature, it felt like this hike took an eternity. Following the crisscrossing wolf and rabbit tracks, we were wasting a lot of precious daylight, and we'd barely made it downstream a few miles.
Be careful, it's pretty slippery. Whew. Woohoo! We made it! Just in time for the snow.
was knocking on the door of the afternoon already, and we had just taken our first steps into the water. This was a rough start, and things on the water didn't really improve. Good-looking runs yielded nothing but disappointment and confusion from the both of us. Carrying that fat goose egg for the first hour or so of fishing was beginning to weigh heavy on our minds, and doubt was creeping in just like the snow squall approaching from over the ridge. But it is so funny how just one hole can change the entire trajectory of a day.
There you go.
What's that? Hook was barely in him too.
Yep. You can go ahead and move.
Whoa, mamma mia. It is ridiculously cold.
Skunk off.
And that's why we packed this towel right here. Oh my gosh. Did you see how slow that bite was?
Yeah.
He
did not fight hard.
That was, well, and where I was casting it, I mean, it went like, the bobber went like this. Like it was a very subtle eat. Kowalski, holy cow.
There's a lot of work into that fish.
I was starting to get a little worried if I'm being honest.
Well, I'll work this hole for a bit while you warm up.
Yeah.
There's bound to be more than one right here.
From up above, it was tough to tell if there was anything else holding in these emerald waters, but Kowalski picked up the rod and gave it a swing regardless.
Oh, set the hook, Kowalski, set the hook. Watch this stick, If you can't bring him around it, oh gosh. Oh, she's healthy, buddy. Oh, she's wrapped. Yes! Kowalski! What the hell?
That's a nice fish.
That's a great fish.
Dude, she just, like, it was
That was first cast.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Same thing, she just like really slow sipped it. I thought it was snack for a second.
Buddy, that's a west slope right there, huh? What do you think of that?
That's a thickums. That is a thickums.
Let's let him go.
Great fish, buddy. Yo!
You ever notice that every meat hang we've had, my fish of the meat hang was directly after your first fish? 3 times in a row now.
Mm-hmm.
Like my best fish of the week would always be, like it was always my first fish every time. The last 3 meat hangs.
Mm-hmm.
The skunk was finally off, and in the moment, I was quite convinced there was no way in hell either of us would be finding any fish today. I mean, seriously, folks, this was amazing, and right as we were gearing up to go find greener pastures, Kowalski had the bright idea to dredge at the bottom one last time with the streamer, and before my very eyes, connected again.
Oh my gosh, are you on? Yeah! Yo, that's a great fish.
Just needed to get deeper.
Wow, look at him. That's a
him in the exact same spot I got
freaking
the fish.
tank, dude. Wow, that's a big fish. Streamer's a good call.
I don't think I was getting deep enough.
Dude, that's a freaking crazy big fish.
Wow. Yeah, they've got their winter colors in right now. They're so beautiful. Look at you, Magoo. It's another dandy, brother.
Dandy.
While I completely missed the release of that behemoth cutthroat, I think it'd be a good opportunity to talk about the fly we caught that fish on. I would go as far to say this is a fairly simple streamer pattern and you only need a few materials handy to make the overall profile. Not all of these are required, but if you're looking to get any for this particular fly or hunting for any other fly fishing gear, I've been having great luck with AvidMax. They always manage to get me exactly what I need in just a couple of days, plus the boys over there in Denver are genuinely good dudes, so I couldn't suggest them anymore. But now let's take a look at the pattern recipe itself. And when I say recipe, remember folks, this is cooking and not baking. Just use this as a general guideline and not as an exact, okay? Okay, let's go. Starting out with the tail, I use two forms of flash to make it stand out in the water. One key here is that I am building up a nice thread dam behind the flash to coax those fibers away from looping under the hook shank when casting or when stripping. Next, add a nice section of white zonker strip to finish out the tail portion. While we're here, go ahead and trim both colors of crystal flash to just a touch past that zonker strip tail. Before we build the body, don't forget to add your dumbbell eyes. Those are the key to giving this fly a nice jig-style retrieve in the water. So once locked in, let's focus on the body. This one is simple enough. Either wrap more zonker strip around the shank, or in this case, make a dubbing loop with the same white zonker strip. Coax those forward with touching wraps towards the back of those dumbbell eyes, and boom, our body's done. Nearing the end here, toss a few barred rubber legs on either side right behind those eyes. This last part is certainly optional, but I like finishing out this fly with one more dubbing loop of zonker hair to give the head a bit more density. But as you can see, that's about all she wrote. After a couple snips of the legs and crystal flash, this thing is ready to fish. Much like a lot of my flies, this pattern has no name, and I'm sure I will never tie this exact thing ever again. I will make many more flies that are adjacent to this one with varying colors, sizes, and materials substituted as needed. But clearly the cutthroat were willing to munch down, and speaking of, let's make it back to the river and maybe find a few more cutthroat to finish out the day. The snow still hovered around the river corridor and showed no sign of slowing down. But as Kowalski and I approached this next hole, we had a bit more hope that there would be a fish lurking underneath this one.
That's good fish, buddy. Oh, come on, buddy. I think he's wrapped. Oh! Yes!
Hell yeah, dude.
Yo, dude, this is a good fish.
That was some good footy too.
Oh, hell yeah. Tail is beautiful.
Speckles on that thing.
I didn't even see him down there. You figured you would have seen him. I mean, it's so crystal clear. Well, they seem to have been few and far between today, but if they're like that, I'll take it every single day of the week, Kowalski. Yes,
Take
dude.
that.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh. This day's been weird. It's been tough, but at the same time, I mean, that's 4 phenomenal fish in the middle of, I mean, seemingly winter. Whew. Fish, 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 fish. Decent boy, decent boy. Really decent boy. Ah! Whew. Come on, sucker. No, I don't want you to go up there. Come down here with me. That's another tanker of a fish, buddy. Woo! He's gone, he's good. All right, there. That's why I come to Alberta, folks. That is a beautiful, bright orange cutty. Yeehaw, brother. Ah, there we go. Catching some dang fish.
After those last 2 outstanding fish, the evening really slowed down. But just because we couldn't catch any more fish on the day, didn't mean we didn't see any more. Quite the contrary, in fact. Coming up to a slate hole revealed a school of sizable cutthroat at the bottom. On either end of this particular hole was really flat water without much structure. I'm sure these fish disperse a bit more in the summertime, but for the next few months, I would be willing to bet they hunker down here as the ice encroaches on their home. But with the sun now nearing the ridge and still many miles downstream of the access point, we couldn't bother these fish much longer. The wind had picked up and finally blew the snow out of the valley, revealing the whole picture of the beautiful landscape around us. As pretty as this was, the last thing Kowalski and I wanted to do was dilly-dally and hike back in the dark. This was especially true knowing there were still active grizzlies and wolves in the area, so we made sure to book it back to the truck and back to the Airbnb as fast as possible. Some might say too fast. Sliding back into town in the nick of time, celebratory steaks were on the menu, and once the bellies were full, sleep crept in soon after.
Me hang, day 2.
Day 2. As you can see, we're getting ready. The sun is coming up slowly but surely, but it's one of our last mornings here in the Airbnb, which is a little bit sad because it is absolutely beautiful. But fireplace is going, coffee, brekkie, we're ready to rip. We're just waiting on that sun right now. So yeah, we'll get out there in a second, but hoping for more of the same today. Maybe a couple bull trout if we can. Yeah, you can't be speaking French like that no more. You know I'm not good with that. Do you want your beanie?
No, I got this instead.
Okay. Are we good in here?
Should be.
And so we were off again. The temperature wouldn't be doing much climbing today, so we were trying to mentally prepare for frozen toes. Hunting for success at a new spot seemed like a good idea at the time, but if I've done it once, I've done it a million times. Folks, never, and I mean never, leave fish to find fish, especially when faced with subpar conditions that were on the borderline of downright dangerous. Slick ice around the river tried to break your bones, and slippery sludge underneath the surface tried to drag you down.
Be really careful in here, it's deep. But what I find is it gums up your line.
Oh, it does?
Like it gets in your line. So you can only use this, like, I'm at the end of the shelf life of this line right now. Like I've been using it all season, so I don't really care. But I wouldn't put new line on a rod and then immediately slap some ice off based on it. No dice, brother. It's hard to tell. You can kind of see the rocks look a little bit blurry. That is all ice forming underneath the surface and subsequently floating down the river.
Doing our best to keep our hopes high in the moment, we agreed to hit the canyon section and give it an honest shake before completely bailing on plan A. But, as you can see, that didn't last very long.
Hey everybody.
Hello.
That's Alex. I'm Mike. Some of you may know, some of you may not know, but every year we do an annual trip. What's the trip called?
It's called Meat Hang.
The roots go way back. You can probably watch some other videos to find out why it's called Meat Hang. Probably not what you think. I bet no one will be able to guess why it's called Meat Hang. But this year's Meat Hang didn't go well. Nope. I let other people make plans for us, and that turned out to be a complete failure. So this is kind of a plan B. And where the heck are we, Kowalski?
I don't even know. Somewhere deep in Canada.
We're deep in Canada. As you can see, the season's kind of ending here. Literally, the season closes next week, so we got an early winter, and things are tough. You know, we had a decent day yesterday. We caught some fish.
Yeah, we had a good day yesterday. So.
But today is rough. The water sucks. There's ice and junk forming in the actual water itself, which tells me the ice is, or the temperatures are making ice, which means the water's really cold. So. Yeah, folks, this isn't always the best thing. It's not always the you know, the fun thing to put online, but I guess it's kind of the real, I don't know, this is what it is.
Sometimes fishing sucks.
It just sucks. And then this is kind of case in point. Our waders are frozen, fingers hurt, but we're gonna try pulling audible as best we can. The days are just short. It kind of, I don't know, take a gamble and you lose. And right now we're losing, so might drop some layers and get a hike on.
Yeah, a mean hike, and then we're gonna go try one more river before dark.
But yeah, folks, thanks for sticking with if you're still here. And
hopefully the next scene is a good one.
Cut to, we didn't catch anything.
Yep, we didn't catch a single thing. We actually ended up going to a few different spots that day, which all resulted in the same outcome. Another one of my major character flaws is building up expectations to towering heights. I know it's something I've spoken on in the past, but it still gets me every single time. For the better part of a year, I'd imagine night after night how amazing this year's meat hang would be. The lemons life served up instead certainly couldn't compare to my expectations. But in saying that, we still had a lot of fun up in Nordegg and found some stellar fish. It just didn't really feel like meat hang though, you know? In the end, when it's all said and done, I really blame myself for this. Overextended on other trips for the season, I got lazy, and I trusted others to do the planning for me. It kills me to know I let Kowalski down and wasted a great deal of both of our time and money on a massive failure. The sting of this mistake will no doubt be carried on for many seasons to come, but unfortunately, throughout my life, it seems like losing or failing is the only way I really learn. So, here's to hoping next year's meat hang goes a bit better.